You've been invited to a dinner party. You arrive at a great hall where 1,000 guests are already seated. The smell of roasting meat, fresh bread, and ripe fruit fills the air. Servers carry trays piled higher than you've ever seen. Your host, a tall woman in white, raises her glass. Tonight, we are serving enough food for 3,000 people. By dawn, every dish will be cleared, and 300 of you will have starved to death. She gestures to the hall. Walk through. Tell me why. You start at the table nearest the kitchen. The guests here are laughing, full. A server clears a plate still piled with meat and bread. You follow him to a bin in the corner. He tips the whole plate in. Behind him, another server does the same, and another. You walk further. In the middle of the hall, 2 stewards stand back to back, shouting at each other. Neither is serving their tables. The guests sit with empty plates, watching the kitchen across the room. The food is there, it just isn't reaching them. At the far end of the hall, the tables look different. No tablecloth, no silverware. The trays that arrive are half empty, the food cold. A child holds out an empty bowl as a server walks past her without stopping. She doesn't have the gold coin the other guests placed on their plates when they sat down. You return to the host. She asks quietly, "There is enough food. There has always been enough food. So why is the child still hungry?" You stand there, running your hands through your hair, looking around the hall. For centuries, economists, governments, and aid organizations have been trying to answer this exact question. Why, in a world of plenty, anyone goes hungry at all? The first real breakthrough in answering it came in 1981 from an Indian economist named Amartya Sen. Sen had grown up in Bengal during the 1943 famine, where roughly 3 million people starved to death. The thing about that famine that haunted him for years was that there was no real shortage of food. Rice was still being grown in Bengal that year. Some of it was even being shipped out of the region. People weren't starving because the food was gone. They were starving because they couldn't afford to buy it. Their wages had collapsed at the same time food prices spiked, and most of Bengal couldn't reach the rice that was right in front of them. Sen built an entire field of economics around this idea. He called it the entitlements approach. What matters isn't whether food exists, but whether people have the means to claim it. He won the Nobel Prize for it in 1998. Once you accept that hunger is mostly an economic problem, the question becomes, what do you do about it? The first big answer came from agriculture. In the 1960s, an American scientist named Norman Borlaug developed new strains of wheat and rice that produced 2 to 3 times more grain per acre. India, on the verge of famine in 1965, became a grain exporter within a decade. Borlaug is credited with saving as many as 1 billion lives. He won the Nobel Peace Prize for it. The second big answer came from cash. In the early 2000s, Brazil started a program called Bolsa Familia, small monthly payments to poor families, on the condition that their kids attended school and went to the doctor. Within 10 years, 20 million Brazilians had climbed out of extreme poverty. 60 other countries copied the model. By 2015, the world had cut extreme hunger in half. The United Nations set a new target, 0 hunger by 2030. And then, the numbers started going the wrong way. Conflict tore through Yemen. Drought hit the Horn of Africa. War broke out in Syria, then in Ukraine. COVID disrupted supply chains across the planet. Climate shocks started turning reliable farmland to dust. The progress the world had made depended on a relatively peaceful, stable century. It didn't survive a less stable one. By 2023, more people were going hungry than at any point since 2008. In late 2021, just as global hunger was starting to climb back up, the strangest public argument about it in modern history played out on Twitter. CNN ran a headline that said just 2% of Elon Musk's wealth, about $6 billion at the time, could solve world hunger. The quote came from David Beasley, the head of the UN World Food Program. Musk saw it. He replied, "If the WFP can describe exactly how $6 billion will solve world hunger, I will sell Tesla stock right now and do it." And then, but it must be open source accounting so the public sees precisely how the money is spent. Within 2 weeks, the World Food Program published a detailed plan. Beasley walked back the Solve World Hunger framing. That was never quite what he had meant. What $6 billion would actually do, he said, was keep 42 million people in 43 countries from starving to death that year. $3.5 billion for food and delivery, $2 billion for cash and vouchers, $700 million for country operations, $400 million to manage all of it. Musk never sold the stock. The thing that exchange really showed wasn't about Musk or Beasley or $6 billion. It showed how easy it is to look at a number, more than 700 million hungry people, trillions of dollars in collective billionaire wealth, and assume the math is simple. And how hard it actually is to turn dollars into bread when the bread has to cross a battlefield, a border, a broken supply chain, and a price floor. Money matters. It's just not enough on its own. So, what is enough? The most effective programs today look less like food drops and more like plumbing, cash sent directly to a mother's phone so she can buy what her family actually needs at the local market. School meals. Over 400 million children get fed at school somewhere on the planet on any given day, which is the largest social safety net in human history. Drought-resistant seeds bred for the climate that's actually coming. Famine early warning systems that catch a crisis 6 months before the first death. None of it is glamorous. None of it goes viral. It is slow, technical, expensive, and quietly responsible for the fact that famine deaths today are a fraction of what they were in the 1980s. Walk back into the hall. The host is still standing at the front, glass in hand. The child is still at the far end of the room, holding out her empty bowl. The kitchen behind her is still piled high. Every table in that hall is real. Across the planet right now, food is piling up in supermarkets and on dinner plates, while people a street away can't afford it. War is shutting down farms and turning aid convoys into targets, and hundreds of millions of people are sitting next to food they will never get to eat. For 40 years, the world has been building the bridges that connect them, the systems that let a bowl of food cross a continent, a border, a battlefield, and a price tag. Some of those bridges still hold. Others are collapsing faster than the world can rebuild them. The work isn't finished, and it might not be for a generation. The food was never the missing piece. The bridges were.